Welcome to Beyond the B, an ongoing dialogue about the past, present, and future of the B Corp movement. Co-hosts Emmy Allison and Ryan Honeyman facilitate an open and honest conversation about the B Corp movement, advise companies on how to increase their impact, and provide a deep dive into the new B Corp standards that are shaping our community.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Honeyman, partner and worker owner at Lyft Economy. Before we dive in today, I want to say that if you haven't already listened to our previous episode on Dr. Bronner's decision to decertify as a B Corp with Farmer C. Stanley, I recommend you go back and listen to that one first. It provides important context for what we're about to discuss. In this episode, I'm going to start with laying out some key points, and then I'll be joined by my Lyft team members, Emmy Allison and Kevin Bayuk, to unpack this conversation further. So we're here today because there's been a lot of confusion and speculation around a new initiative that was just announced this week called the Purpose Pledge and how it relates to B Corp certification. So what is the Purpose Pledge? Well, the Purpose Pledge is a commitment-driven initiative designed for companies with land and ocean-based material supply chains to prioritize people and planet over profit. It's a peer-driven framework, not a certification, and it encourages businesses to work together in commitment cohorts to push for industry-wide change in the consumer packaged goods or CPG industry. So let me be very clear from the start. The Purpose Pledge is not a replacement for B Corp certification. Lyft Economy remains deeply committed to the B Corp movement. And both Purpose Pledge and B Corp serve important but distinct roles in pushing businesses towards deeper impact. So why are we doing this podcast? Well, we felt it was important to address the confusion that has emerged since the Purpose Pledge launched earlier this week. As many of you know, Lyft Economy has been deeply involved in the B Corp movement for many years. We've worked with companies like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, Thrive Market, Allbirds, etc. to help them deepen their impact. And at the same time, Kevin Bayuk from our team has played a key role in co-creating the Purpose Pledge because we believe it fills an important gap in how CPG businesses collaborate to drive systemic change. The Purpose Pledge announcement came right after Dr. Bronner's widely publicized decision to leave the B Corp community, a decision that we were not involved in and did not know about in advance. And that timing has led to some misconceptions, so we want to set the record straight. So let's dive into how the two different initiatives are different. So B Corp certification remains one of the best accountability tools we have for ethical businesses. It's third-party verified, so B Lab rigorously evaluates companies for certification. It requires structural commitments, so B Corps have to amend their legal structure to prioritize stakeholders over shareholders. And it's a well-established, globally recognized leader for responsible businesses. And there's many other benefits too. In contrast, the Purpose Pledge takes a different approach. It is not a certification, and there is no third-party audit. It is sector-specific. So right now, it's focused on CPG companies with land and ocean-based material supply chains. It is peer-driven. So companies work together in commitment cohorts to develop industry-wide policies to push for deeper transformation. And here's something important. Many of the pilot companies in the Purpose Pledge are also certified B Corps. This isn't a one or the other situation. It's a both-and approach to building a better economy. So why does Lyft Economy support both? At Lyft, we believe that business as usual is failing us. We're in a planetary crisis. Extractive capitalism continues to harm people and ecosystems, and we need every tool available to create real change. B Corp certification and Purpose Pledge are not in competition. They're both tools for holding businesses to higher standards. B Corps help companies embed accountability into their structure, among other things, and Purpose Pledge encourages a lot of peer collaboration and industry-wide transformation in the consumer packaged goods industry. We need both approaches if we actually want to build an economy that works for the benefit of all life. So now that I've laid the foundation, I want to bring in Emmy and Kevin to talk more about what this means in practice. We'll dive deeper into how we navigate this moment, why B Corp and Purpose Pledge both matter, and what's next for businesses that truly want to push for systemic change. Let's get into it. Emmy and Kevin, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. And wondering, maybe Kevin, can you kick us off with explaining a bit more, since you've been involved with the Purpose Pledge? Could you explain more what it is and, just a little bit about it so folks can learn more from your perspective?
The Purpose Pledge is an initiative that Lift Economy with Dr. Bronner's and One Step Closer, or OSC, along with a stewardship council of about 10 OSC companies that participate in that trade group and developmental community, to create a initiative that has multiple kind of levers of change. The first one that's been publicized in a press release this week is a pledge or a commitment framework for particular companies with land and ocean-based supply webs that are oriented around purpose, prioritizing people and planet over profit maximization or business as usual norms. The pledge is for 14 companies joined a pilot year for the Purpose Pledge. There may be a few more that join, and they are going to work together to develop baseline metrics around a series of commitments that, as I mentioned earlier, commitments that essentially assert or reify or prioritize or privilege their purpose. And we can kind of name those off. And those companies would then work in a peer-to-peer collaborative environment to help each other achieve those commitments, to then inspire other companies to say, like, wow, we can actually go into business not to maximize profit or concentrate wealth. We can actually go into business to actually have outsized beneficial impacts in all the communities we touch, all the stakeholders we serve. So it's kind of a developmental community that's collaborating to inspire possibilities for other businesses.
And then Emmy, anything to add here? What's coming up for you around this?
Originally when I first had heard some things here and there about the Purpose Pledge, it's a very exciting framework, not a certification. It kind of addresses a lot of the areas that or it addresses some areas where a certification framework is kind of limited. And this is something that I think certain certification bodies are trying to encourage in their movements in general and facilitate in their communities. But I really like that Purpose Pledge is sort of tying it all together, this pledge, this fund, and this policy work. But I think it's really exciting overall.
Yep. One thing that I might add, because there is nuance to every conversation, but for a clearer picture for those looking into the Purpose Pledge to understand it better, there are commitments that will be where the floor achievement of those commitments will be measured by certifications. So a good example would be circularity for zero waste, which is that's one of the 10 Purpose Pledge commitments, where companies are saying we're going to achieve an average diversion rate of 90% or greater from landfill, incineration, environment from their manufacturing processes. There is a certifying body. The USGBC has something called the TRUE certification, TRUE, Total Resource Use and Efficiency Standard. It's a certification, and there's a process to go through that manufacturing facilities would have to be in contact with this certifying body, who would then grant them certification. Certification in the Purpose Pledge for example, for that commitment would mark pledge floor achievement. Certainly, a company might go beyond 90%, 95% diversion, or 100% diversion from landfill, but the floor achievement would be measured by a certification. That's just one example.
I think another interesting difference and what makes Purpose Pledge a little bit unique is that This is only the 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 current standards as they are only really applicable to a very small number of companies. And they're definitely created so that folks can reach for a set of standards like this and a set of expectations. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be a really, really small number of companies who are sort of just like really reaching for the stars here. Whereas I think one of the merits of the B Corp community is the more folks that are in the movement, the more sort of power that the movement has. And the the number of B Corps is sort of like, it's approaching 10,000 total worldwide. And ideally, we would double that, triple that, multiply that by quite a bit. And I think a lot of the power of the movement is in our collective action and the idea that we're encouraging businesses overall to raise the bar, to raise the standard of doing business. Whereas the Purpose Pledge is just like, it is a different, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Kevin, could you speak to why does Lyft, how does both of these B Corp, Purpose Pledge, and others fit into Lyft's vision? And so how do we frame this? Like, why would Lyft be working on these two different things?
Yeah. So at Lyft, our work is towards the transformation of the global economy to work for the benefit of all life. Well, hearing that, you're probably thinking, wow, that's a big, what a self-aggrandized vision. That's our vision. We pick away at it the best way we know how, but we also know that that's likely a multi-generational endeavor to transform the very nature of the business as usual economy to work for the benefit of all life has enormous implications for the structures and institutions and how we provision needed goods and services to humanity in ways that benefit them as well as benefit the environment that they live in and that surrounds them. Today, because I can't snap my fingers and transform the economy, what are the tools in the toolbox that we might use today in 2025 to help on the trajectory in that long arc of transformation? Well, when you have companies that are subjecting themselves to interrogating their operations, their practices, their policies, and saying, we're the institutions that provide goods today, and we can reduce harm or do better or create beneficial impact. And there's ways we want to measure it, there's ways we want to collaborate to do it. Pretty much anybody who's in that conversation is the type of organization that we would want to support because the in the long arc, it's probably necessary and inadequate to transform the structure, norms, policies, procedures, and practices and operations of today's businesses. We've talked before, I think on this podcast, but on other podcasts about what we envision in the long run is necessary and adequate for the full transformation of the economy. But right now, one of our allies from an organization called East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative, Noni Session, says the real crisis is a crisis of imagination. We don't even know what's possible, what businesses can do. And I see, like Emmy was saying, nearly 10,000 certified B Corps. There's a lot of B Corps that are doing incredibly inspiring work. And that's some of the things that we do at Lyft is we actually help those companies interrogate and then develop and elaborate on their operational practices and policies to actually enhance the impact for who they're serving and how they go about doing business. And so we're working individually one-on-one with them to help them do even better, to move beyond their current practices to enhance their impact. And as a side effect of that, that often increases their B Corp certification score according to the old standards and whatever the new standards imply. When you actually do that transformational work with Lyft Economy, your impact is enhanced. Well, the same is going to be true with the smaller group of companies that are committing to the Purpose Pledge. We're going to be rolling up our sleeves and working with those companies to saying, how can we actually achieve a climate positive operation through a combination of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, investing in insets because of the materiality of our supply chain, and then maybe looking at climate justice oriented offsets until we can reach a point where they're no longer needed. There's a lot of details in how of doing that, and Lyft has made it our job to understand those details and best practices and to be involved in helping companies in a pre-competitive context collaborate on doing better. We're going to be there and we're going to be involved in that. These are all things that we would do today in 2025, 2026, and this next decade in the long arc of transformation. And for those of us who don't, or who are listening to this podcast but don't know about the details of what else Lyft does, we do a lot of other things beyond just working with companies and transforming their practices and helping them collaborate. We work on next economy infrastructure, reinventing what it means for retirement, working on capital formation for non-extractive capital. We do a lot of other things, and training and education and culture transformation. All those things we see as complementary to the work we do with businesses. So B Corp certification and the Purpose Pledge initiative fit within our theory of change in terms of things that we could do today that the outcomes of which will reduce harm immediately, hopefully, and enhance beneficial impact to a variety of communities, people, environments, ecosystems all over the globe, and inspire our collective imagination of what's possible, what an institution might be able to achieve, even if in the long run we think that there's different types of institutions that must be generated to actually provision for human needs in ways that create reliable prosperity for all life for all time.
I would just say, I think one of my favorite parts about the Lyft economy vision is that we kind of already have all the tools that we need to sort of like make meaningful progress and work towards this economy for the benefit of all life, like truly for the benefit of all life. And we have all the tools that we would need to sort of like reverse the harm that has been done to the planet and to an extent, remedy a lot of the harm that has been done to people as parts of this capitalistic system. But I think that the Purpose Pledge really sort of like helps us move the needle toward that, being able to realize a vision of that nature. And I think there are amazing B Corps that are also working toward that, but it's not necessarily required by the B Corp certification, at least at this point in time. And I think too, I think it's helpful to frame that B Corps like Dr. Bronner's have been frustrated sort of with the transition to a set of standards that doesn't really like honor or that doesn't really recognize folks who are going like above and beyond the bare or like the floor, the standard of B Corp certification. And I think that the Purpose Pledge helps to address some of that in really honoring and recognizing some of the folks that are working towards a truly regenerative economy.
Kevin, maybe any closing thoughts, anything we missed, and then maybe Emmy?
I don't know if we missed it, but yeah, I've been party to a flurry of correspondence since the announcement of the Purpose Pledge, where hopefully this podcast dispels maybe some things that might be confusing. But if I could say it more clearly, there's almost, like Emmy said, almost 10,000 B Corps today. It's our intention that there's hundreds of thousands or even millions of B Corps. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if we could make it so that it's actually to be a corporation or to incorporate in any jurisdiction, that there's actually a statutory requirement to be able to include other stakeholders than just profit maximization for shareholders, would be a big move forward for the transformation of the economy. And B Corp certification is the only thing I know out there that is championing as a requirement this statutory commitment. There's nothing else like it. And I think it's really important for the transformation of the economy. And as I've heard from lots of B Corps that we've worked with, just going through the questions. I'll pick something very banal, but like we've worked with companies and they're like, wow, we never had a whistleblower policy. I know it's like a small, tiny thing in the scheme of things, but B Corp certification has hundreds of these discoveries of like, wow, we should really have this policy or this practice within our operation. And we didn't even think about that. And to me, that's an incredible value that B Corp certification is bringing to this movement to transform the economy, to change the nature and operations of the institutions of the economy. And I do think having a pre-competitive developmental collaborative group of ocean and land-based supply companies that are inspiring each other to achieve outsized beneficial impact, and then inspiring other companies in that segment of that industry to expand their imagination of what's possible. So critical, so important. And just to underscore something you said, Ryan, it's like these are, in my perspective, extraordinarily complementary in initiatives and efforts in the transformation of the economy. And I apologize to anybody, any of my stakeholders or people that we work with who were surprised or confused about why Lift Economy would be working on initiatives that I guess superficially, perceptually might be competitive. Ouch. Oh, I'm so sorry if anybody thought that these were competitive. These are totally different things and from my perspective, from Lyft's perspective, and also really integral to our work in transforming the economy. So I'll just leave it there.
I definitely could not have said it better myself. And I guess the only other thing I will add is that it would be really cool for folks to like engage with us in this conversation. I am really interested to hear folks' thoughts, and if there are things you see in the Purpose Pledge that you are interested in learning more about and talking more about. I do think there will be more information coming out about the Purpose Pledge. But yeah, we at Lift Economy are obviously huge B Corp fans, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Thanks, Amy and Kevin. I think I'll go ahead and summarize some of the takeaways from today. 1. The Purpose Pledge is not a replacement for B Corp certification. They're complementary, not competing. 2. Purpose Pledge is a distinct sector-specific tool. It's for companies with land and ocean-based material supply chains who want to push their impact further. And it's about collaborative learning and policy development. 3. B Corp certification remains one of the best accountability frameworks we have. It provides third-party verification and legal accountability for businesses committed to people and the planet. And the B Corp community is filled with inspiring changemakers who are leading the way. 4th, Lift Economy's role is to bridge, not divide. We are committed to strengthening the B Corp certification, supporting Purpose Pledge, and helping businesses move beyond compliance into deeper transformation. And 5th, finally, this is about more than one certification or initiative. It's about real systems change. We need stronger standards, deeper accountability, and more collaboration to transform capitalism at its roots. So Lift Economy is committed to being part of that transformation, and we invite you to be part of it too. All right, well, that about wraps our show. Just to look forward, we didn't really have time today, nor was the intention today to get into the actual 10 commitments that Purpose Pledge companies make. So, Kevin mentioned a couple, like True Zero Waste or the Climate Positive, but we will make it a point to dive into those commitments in future episodes and compare and contrast to how it looks compared to the new B Corp standards once those are released, ideally in the next month or so. All right, everyone. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Bee. We are trying to grow our audience and wanted to ask you a huge favor that you can do right now. Try to think of one person that might like this show. Then pull out your phone and text them something like, "Hey, I think you might like this new podcast, Beyond the Bee. Check it out at lifteconomy.com/beyond. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts." Seriously, try to text someone right now. Pull out your phone. Then follow up with them to see how they liked it. This would be super helpful for us. We deeply appreciate your support.